Doctors, can I ask you something? Do you know right now, today, the exact number that you need to hit your production goal this month? Not like a rough idea, not what you think it might be, but the actual number. The gap between what is currently scheduled and what you need to produce to hit that target. If you had to answer that in the next 30 seconds and you're not sure you could, this episode is exactly for you. Because the practices that are consistently hitting their production goals aren't doing anything magical. They know the number every single morning before the day starts. And today I'm going to show you exactly how to calculate that. Welcome back to the Morning Huddle Series. I'm Dr. Simone Ellis, and this is episode 4, which one I am super excited about because if you've been watching this since episode 1, this episode is where the Morning Huddle stops being a meeting and starts being a financial strategy session. If you're just finding this series, go back and start at episode 1. What we covered was about the purpose, the preparation, the roles, and the foundation, everything that sits on for this episode here. And the link is in the description. So for those who have been with me from the beginning, you now know how the huddle starts on time, what the prep should be done the night before, and your team knows exactly their specific roles. What we're going to add today is the numbers layer. And here's what we're covering. I want you guys to know how to calculate your production gap in 90 seconds every morning, what to track in collections in real time without waiting for the end of the month, and the new patient metrics that tell you more about your practice future than any other number that you track. That last one is the one that most offices dramatically underestimate, and we're going to get into it. I want to start off with something that might reframe how you think about everything financially from the tracking perspective of your practice. Because I know that for a lot of doctors, numbers feel like somebody else's department. So either the accountant is handling the numbers or the office manager is pulling the reports. The doctor just understands I need to produce. I understand that the division of responsibility, because I operated that way in the first few years of my practice, then I learned something that changed everything. Most practice owners find out what they are doing in the month at the end of the month, and the practices that are consistently hitting their goals, finding out that information each day that they're going into the practice before the patient walks in. That gap between reactive financial awareness and real-time financial clarity is one of the biggest operational differences between practices that hit their goal consistently and practices that are always chasing them. Here's why this matters so much. When we look at studies from the ADA's Health Policy Institute, it talks about that the practice's overheads usually are running between 59 to 65% of collections for most general practices. What this means is in plain language that your fixed costs, your rent, your staff, your supplies, your equipment, those are happening regardless of you producing or not. So when you miss a production target, you're not just missing revenue, you're missing a revenue against the cost that already occurred. A $5,000 production miss in a month with a 65% overhead is not $5,000 problem. That is a $5,000 hole in a bucket that already has running water out of it. When you know your gap in real time, you can do something about it. And while there's still time to act on it. So when you find out at the end of the month, you can learn from it and hope that the next month is better. Real-time awareness is different because you're able to respond and be able to reflect on it only. Your morning huddle is where that real-time awareness gets created every single day. All right, so let's get into the math, and I want you to know upfront that this is the most straightforward calculation you're gonna do all day. The production gap collection answers one question. Based on where we are at the month and what is currently scheduled, are we on track to hit our goal? And if not, how much do we need to close it? Here's the formula. I'm gonna walk you through it in real-time examples. Step 1, I want you to start with your monthly goal production. Let's say that your goal for the month is 100,000. Step 2, look at what currently is scheduled across all remaining working days for the month. Not just today, not just the whole remaining month. If every patient shows up and every scheduled procedure gets completed, what is the total production value on the schedule right now? So for this example, let's say the instance is 72,000. Step 3 is going to calculate that gap. So $100,000 minus $72,000 equals $28,000. That is the production gap. That is the number that you need to add to the schedule to capture through that same day treatment to hit your goal. Step 4, you're going to divide that gap number into the remaining working days. So if you have 14 working days left, you have $28,000 divided by 14. That's going to equal $2,000. That is your daily gap target. That is the number that your team needs to hear every single morning. Step 5 is what you're going to do. You're going to break that daily target gap between doctor side and hygiene side. So if your practice is typical, 70% of that production is doctor, 30% is hygiene, then your doctor needs to close 1,400 of that daily gap, and hygiene needs to close 600. That entire calculation takes 90 seconds when prepped the night before, and when your team hears those specific numbers every morning, everything changes about how they approach the day. Now, here's a pro tip that I give to all of my one-on-one coaching clients. Don't just report that gap, report the context of that gap. There's a big difference between a $28,000 gap with a 14 working day remaining and a $28,000 gap with 4 days working remaining. The number is the same. Urgency and the strategy are completely different, and your team needs that context to understand what level of intentionality today requires. Here's my first takeaway. Run this calculation in your next morning huddle. Your monthly goal, your current scheduled production gap, your gap working days remaining, the daily targets, and the doctor and hygiene breakdown. I want you to write it on a whiteboard or a notepad when you're in, the whole team can see it. And the first thing that I want you to do in front of your team is watch the energy shift. See, when people see real numbers, they engage differently on that day. Now, here's where things get a little interesting, because production and collections are two completely different conversations, and most offices are only talking about one of them in the morning huddle. You gotta have both, because production is what's on the schedule, right? But collections is actually what's coming to the bank. And in a healthy practice, those two numbers should be really close together. When there's not, there's a gap between your collection process and your morning huddle. It's actually one of the best places to start with to address it. When they aren't, there's a gap between your collection process and your morning huddle. And it's actually the best place to start tracking that. So here's how the collection conversation fits into your morning huddle. Your insurance or your billing coordinator reports one or three things. First, where are we up against for the monthly collection goal? This is a separate goal from production, and it needs to have its own number. So if your production goal is 100,000 and your collection goal should be very close to that, adjust your typical insurance write-offs for any patient plans or payment plans that are in place. Second, where is the status on the outstanding claims? Specifically, are there claims that have been sitting for more than 30 days without resolution? Those need immediate actions, and the morning huddle is where the coordinator flags them and names them about what she's doing about them today. And third, if there's any clinical documentation issues that are slowing down the claims, that piece I talk about in episode 3, I want to go a little bit deeper on it here because it's so important. If your billing coordinator is having claims denied and delayed because a post-op x-rays were not submitted, or a narrative was missing, or because specific codes are not being documented correctly, those are not billing problems. Those are clinical workflow problems. And the morning huddle is the single best opportunity to get your clinical team and administrative team in the same room to solve those problems. Most people in the financial conversation in the morning huddle stop at the reporting and collection numbers. And what they do not ask is why the number looks the way it does. And the second that question is asked, it gives you a lot of leverage, because a billing coordinator who can say, well, we're $8,000 behind on collections, and here's exactly why, is worth way more to your practice than a billing coordinator who just reads the number and moves on. Now, for the patient balance piece, if your practice has a policy around outstanding balances, I highly recommend that you do a morning huddle where the patients get flagged before they arrive, not to embarrass them or to create a confrontational situation, but so that your front desk is prepared to have that brief personal conversation about the balances before they go to the back. When that conversation happens as a surprise at checkout, it's awkward for everyone. And when it's anticipated and prepared for, it's just doing business way more professionally. So here's takeaway number 2. Add a collections report to your morning huddle agenda for this week. You can have monthly collection goal or your current collection number gap, any patients that are having balances that you need the front desk to talk to and have a conversation. This 5-minute addition to your huddle will do more than just change the cash flow than you can do in your practice, and it helps to add value to this right now. I've saved this one for the last because this is the metric most offices are tracking, But almost no one is using this information correctly in Morning Huddle. And when I say using it correctly, I mean that they're not using it as a forward-looking indicator, but rather like a scorecard. Your new patient numbers tell you two things. It tells you how your practice is growing right now, and it tells you if you know your average new patient value, approximately how much future production that growth represents. Here's what I mean. If your practice sees an average of new patients which produce $1,200 in treatment on their first year, then every new patient on your schedule today is not a new patient. It's a $1,200 in future production that either gets activated or gets lost depending upon how well your team serves that person from the moment they walk through the door. When your scheduler reports in the Morning Huddle that you have 3 new patients today and you've seen 18 new patients this month against the goal of 30, your team should be hearing and thinking this. We got 3 opportunities today to add approximately $3,600 in future production to this practice. That changes how the front desk greets those patients. It changes how assistants seats them. It changes how the hygienist conducts their exam. New patients aren't just people filling appointment slots. They are the future of your practice walking through the door for the first time. And a Morning Huddle is where the whole team gets reminded about these patients when they arrive. Now here's my pro tip I teach inside my one-on-one coaching program inside the vault. For new patients on today's schedule, your team should know one thing about them before they arrive: who referred them or how they found out about you. Not because you're doing a marketing audit, but because in Morning Huddle, if Mrs. Williams was referred by Dr. Thompson's office and she walks into your front desk and you have no idea how she got there or who she is, you've missed a relationship moment. If she was referred by a current patient, well, that current patient deserves a thank you call. Your Morning Huddle is 5-second moment where you make sure none of these relationship opportunities fall through the cracks. So takeaway number 3 is going to be add new patient context to your scheduler's morning report. Not just the number, but who they are and how they found you. That one addition turns a metrics into a relationship strategy. I want to paint a picture of what a full number conversation looks like in Morning Huddle that is operating at a level that we have been building towards since the beginning of these series, because I think that when you hear it all together, it definitely is going to click. The office manager opens. Our monthly production goal is 100,000. We're currently have 72,000 on the schedule across the remaining 14 working days. Our gap is $2,800, which means that our daily target to close this gap is $2,000. Doctor's side needs 1,400 and the hygiene side needs 600. Today's schedule, we're sitting at 5,800, which puts us above our goal of 3,800 over our daily target for today if everything holds. The scheduler follows with, today we have 5,800 on the schedule. 3 new patients, 2 who were referred from the current patients, and I have thank you calls ready for them on for both of referrals. We have 2 open slots this afternoon, and I have a recall list of 7 people I'm working through this morning. I am also following up on 3 missed calls from yesterday. For referrals, today I'm asking for Mrs. Patterson at 10 and Mr. Chin at 2, both whom have mentioned friends that they needed to come in. The billing coordinator goes, monthly collections goal is 95,000. We are at 6,100 so far, and we have 12,000 in claims over the 30 days that I'm actively working. I need to flag for the assistants that 2 crown preps from last week are missing post-op x-ray claims, which I need to have submitted by the end of the day to avoid delay. The treatment coordinator then goes and says, we have 4 same-day treatment opportunities flagged today based off of the opportunity max from last night. So Mrs. Johnson at 9 has 2 pending fillings on the lower right side, adjacent to her scheduled crown prep. Mr. Davis at 11 for hygiene has restorative pending, and I've already pulled his treatment plan. I'm working with hygiene on his slot and will coordinate with the front desk if we get an opening this afternoon. That is the 30-minute morning huddle where every single dollar opportunity has been identified, assigned, and given a strategy before the first patient walks through the door. Guys, this is not a lucky practice. That is a prepared one. 3 number conversations that every morning huddle needs: production gap in real time, collection status, and new patient context. None of these require complicated softwares or accounting degrees. They just require a prepared team the night before and a team that knows their roles. When those 3 conversations are happening every single month, you stop finding out how your month went at the end of the month. You start knowing how your day went before it even started. Episode 5, the final one in this series, is the one that will determine whether everything we've built across these 4 episodes actually sticks. Because listen, you can have the best systems in the world, and if the culture in the room is not right, or if your team is dreading morning huddles instead of looking forward to them, you're going to quietly fall within 60 days. Episode 5 is about how to make the morning huddle the best 30 minutes of your team's day, every single day, not just when things are going well. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you want to catch it, and drop a comment right now. Is one thing that your team is doing that you realize that you've not been tracking in real time? I want to know, because I want to see how I can shape that opening in episode 5. I'll see you there.